Lana Belana Design and welcome again. I am very happy that you are able to join me today. Today's video is going to be super short. I'm going to show you how to emboss using embossing powders and embossing inks. There was a lady on Facebook that recently asked why is it that she is not getting good results when embossing. So this is how this video came to be. There are a lot of products on the market today, and I understand how it can be overwhelming. But one thing is certain, stick to the basics. First, it is very important to use heavy cardstock. The heavier, the better. For embossing, I suggest you use the paper that is not lighter than 80 pounds. 100 or 120 cardstock would be ideal. If you are just a beginner, no need to go and buy premium paper like Nina to practice with. I suggest you buy paper by Recollection at Michael's, but please make sure that cardstock is 110 pounds. They come in pack of 100 sheets and it can easily be confused with the paper that is 65 pounds. That paper comes in packs of 50 and it's usually fairly inexpensive. Next are embossing inks, embossing powders, and anti-static powder or baby powder. Before stamping, always remember to generously apply anti-static powder to your card. I like to just put some powder on my little dish and use a dry paint brush to apply it. The big brush I use for applying and the small brush is to get rid of excess embossing powder before embossing. I'm going to use embossing powder by Recollections and this Wow embossing powder is clear embossing powder, and this clear embossing powder I am going to use with Pigment Inks. These inks are great for embossing. They stay wet for a while, which is a wonderful property for embossing, and that way you don't have to buy different color embossing powders. This wheel of Pigment Inks will definitely do the job. Okay, the first step to embossing is to turn your heat gun on. The heat gun that I am using is by Wagner, and it is a good and durable heat gun, but I am sure that other heat guns works just as good. This particular gun gets very hot very soon, so if you have the same gun, make sure that this gun is not pointing at anything because it will melt it or burn it. For today's demonstration, I will be using two different embossing inks. One is by Ranger and the other one, I'd say the most popular one, is VersaMark Clear Embossing Ink. I will start with VersaMark ink. I am using a simple sentiment stamp, nothing too fancy. So the gun is on, warming up, and I am just going to prepare my paper first, applying anti-static powder, ink up my stamp and stamp, add embossing powder, flick off the excess and melt the powder. Always make sure to heat the paper from the back first, then move to the front and constantly move the gun until powder is melted. And this is done. Now I'm going to compare this with the Ranger ink. I'm going to clean my stamp. It was a little bit dirty, but that's okay. I will repeat the same process. Anti-static powder, ink it up, stamp, embossing powder, and melt. And as you can see, there is a big difference between the two inks, but I really have to be honest. This could also be because my Ranger ink was not as juicy and perhaps needs re-inking, so keep that in mind. Lastly, I am going to demonstrate embossing with Pigment Inks and clear embossing powder. Again, the process is the same. Prepare the surface, ink, ink up your stamp it up, cover with embossing powder, and melt. And the results are beautiful each time without any doubt. And folks, that is all. Everything that I used in today's video is linked below. And if you have any questions regarding this video, please don't hesitate to ask. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one pretty soon. Bye.